Fallen Angels, Disc 2.
I wrote Mama a letter all about how Jenkins had got killed. Then I tore it up and decided not to tell her about it. It would only get her upset. Instead, I told her more about Pee-wee. I didn't want to tell her about Jenkins for another reason, too. I didn't know how I felt about it. In a way, I was really sorry for Jenkins. But there was a small voice inside me that kept saying that I was glad that it wasn't me that was killed. I didn't want anybody to see me putting that in a letter. They brought a VC into camp to question. They questioned him and then they took him into a hooch they used for storage while they decided what they were going to do with him. Pee-wee had been in there to get extra clips earlier and thought he might have lost his comb there. He went into the hooch to look for his pick, and the VC was sitting in there and started a conversation with him.
"Sucker spoke better English than I did,"
Pee-wee said.
"What was he talking about?"
Brunner asked. Brunner had a thick neck and short blonde hair. He also seemed to have a chip on his shoulder.
"Asked me where I was from and stuff like that," Pee-wee said. "I thought he was friendly, you know." "You tell him where you were from?" "Yeah, and he told me he used to go to the flicks down on State Street and even asked me if I knew some chick named Thelma."
"Then what happened?"
"Then he asked me for a cigarette, and we was sitting there smoking when the captain come in. That's when all hell broke loose. The fool jumped on me and tried to get my pistol, and the captain run up to him and punched him in the face."
Then they had tied the VC up and threw him in the back of a Jeep to take to an intelligence unit, and the captain gave Pee-wee hell for giving information to the enemy. Pee-wee said he was glad he gave him some information.
"How come?"
Monaco was cleaning his rifle again.
"'Cause if the Kong ever get to State Street, I want to be on their side,"
Pee-wee said. Wallowik, a Polish kid with dimples who looked like he had more teeth than he needed, looked up from his magazine, flashed a smile, and went back to reading.
"By the time we get out of here, there won't be any Kong left," Brunner said. "We'd get out of here a lot faster if we took them all to Hollywood."
Lobel was tall and a little pudgy. His hair looked as if he had given himself a perm or something. He was almost as tall as me, but soft-looking. He didn't look feminine or anything, just soft.
"What are you going to do with the Viet Cong in Hollywood?" I asked. "Look what they did after World War II, he said, getting up on one elbow. "We made 100 war movies, and we brought all the Germans over here and gave them nice little bit parts, and they were very happy. We brought the Japanese over and gave them little bit parts, and they were happy. Now all we have to do is to stop this silly war and start making the movies right away. We take all these little slant eyes over to Universal, give them SAG cards, and put them to work." "That is a fag solution, only capable of coming from the mind of a fag," Brunner said. "Hey, Corporal," Lobel got up on one elbow. "Just because I don't have my serial number tattooed on my genitals does not mean I'm a fag." "You wouldn't have enough room for more than 3 numbers anyway," Brunner said.
He looked around to see who was laughing. Nobody was. We got mail call and I didn't get anything. I had to find somebody to write to beside Mama so I would get mail. I couldn't depend on Kenny to write. There was something happening up north the next morning. For about an hour we heard artillery. Simpson was in our hooch talking about squirrel hunting outside of Petersburg, Virginia, and Monaco was getting on his case.
"You call that sport?"
Monaco asked.
"I mean, there you are. You gotta weigh 200 pounds, and you got a rifle, and you're against a squirrel that weighs maybe 2 or 3 pounds, and he ain't got nothing." "Man, it's a damn sport," Simpson protested. "You know what a sport is?"
"Do I know what a sport is?"
Monaco pointed to himself. "I played football and baseball for Marist High School in Bayonne. I made all county. That's sport. I don't have to shoot no little animals." "You had you a rifle," Pee-wee said. "You could have made all world."
The way I figure it, Monaco went on, if you hunt a squirrel with a rifle, what do you hunt a bear with? Artillery?
Call in some white phosphorus on him, Bruce said. That'll get his attention until the jets zero in.
White phosphorus, or Willie Peter as they called it, was an artillery round that burned the crap out of anything it touched. You don't know nothing about no hunting. Simpson was getting pissed. You don't know what hunting is. What he's trying to say, Lobel was flat on his back. There was a can of Coke on his chest, is that the white phosphorus is enough. After it burns the bear's ass off, then the good sergeant will finish him off with a couple of frag grenades. Lobel, you are a faggot. Sergeant Simpson got up and left the hooch. We had to go to a village and do what sounded like public relations work. We were supposed to pass it around that anybody who was a communist and who wanted to change and be on our side was welcome to come. The program was called Chew Hoy, but Pee-wee called it Chewing the Whores. The village was a good 10 minutes away, and everybody seemed relaxed. I wasn't. I was scared. I had never thought of myself as being afraid of anything. I thought I would always be a middle-of-the-road kind of guy. Not too brave, but not too scared either. I was wrong. I was scared every time I left the hooch. On the way to the chopper, I found myself holding my breath. I kept thinking of the noise I had heard when Jenkins got it. By the time we took off, I was panting. When we landed, another squad was already at the landing zone. They told us that all the women in the village were either under 6 or over 600. The village stunk. You could smell it as you got near. There were huts laid out about 15 meters from each other. Some were fairly large. There were people in the village walking around. Some were building a pen of some kind. Like the guys had told us, they were either very young or very old. All their men is either in the VC Army or the ARVNs. The ARVNs is the South Vietnamese Army, and they supposed to be on our side. The VC is the enemy. This is like the Civil War, Simpson said. Sometimes one brother go to the VC and the other brother go to the ARVN. After a while, the brother who's fighting with the VC either going to get killed or want to leave and join the ARVN. They don't care what side they fight on? I asked. They would if they got time to think about it, Simpson said. But the ARVN kick they butts if they catch them in the village and they ain't fighting for the ARVN. And the VC kick they butts if they catch them and they ain't fighting for the VC, Pee-wee said. About the size of it. There was a jeep with medical supplies on it. There were aspirins, a few malaria pills, and some Band-Aids. A captain was giving them out to the squad. If you give them malaria pills, make sure they take it on the spot, he said. We don't want this stuff falling into the hands of the VC. So why are we giving it to them? Pee-wee asked. To make them love us, the captain said. He had a smirk on his face. When we got to the village, some of the people ignored us while others came up and begged for sea rations and whatever else we would give them. Lobel and I gave chocolate bars to a Vietnamese woman. A small girl clung to the woman's legs and Lobel asked her name. The woman told us the girl's name was An Lin. She was about 7, maybe 8. She was small, like all the Vietnamese compared to us Americans. She looked like a little doll with dark black eyes that dominated a round, browned face. She could have been black, maybe Puerto Rican. Lobel gave her some candy and carried her around on his shoulders. I shook her hand, and she seemed to want to hold on to my fingers, so the three of us went around the village. Sergeant Simpson let a young boy wear his canteen. We broke out more sea rations, the canned stuff the Army passes off for food, and shared them with the kids. Me and Lobel ate with An Lin. A woman, her head too big for her small body, brought us some rice, and Lobel took some. "Not bad," he said. I didn't want any rice. It smelled okay, but I was afraid of being poisoned. My mind went back to Jenkins and how he had been afraid of dying. We hadn't mentioned his name since he got it. I wanted to ask Lobel about that, but I didn't. "If I owned this village," Lobel was saying, "I'd make it into a real jungle scene." "It is a real jungle scene," I said. "No, to make it real, you have to have one side of the huts open so you can shoot inside," Lobel said. "Then you have to get some artificial grass so it stays the same color throughout the whole picture. And finally, you have to get a wind machine so you can make the grass sway." "Why not just shoot it naturally and save the money?" I asked. "Aren't you from New York?" Lobel squinted at me. "Yeah." "I thought black guys from New York were supposed to be smart," he said. "Nobody pays to see anything natural. You pay to see unnatural things look almost natural." "Oh." "Would you want to see Doris Day or some natural-looking girl with pimples on her forehead and a heat rash on her chest?" The Vietnamese woman who had brought us rice squatted at the edge of the bush to take a leak. "See, you couldn't have any of that," Lobel said. "People in Hollywood don't pee." We gave An Lin as much of our sea rations as she could carry, and Lobel gave her a new name. "She'll never do anything in Hollywood with her name," he said. We decided to call her Ariel. Lobel said that as soon as we got her to Santa Monica, we had it made. Pee-wee spent most of the time sitting down in a hut until Lieutenant Carroll made him walk around the village. He found a bottle of wine in one of the huts and tried to buy it for $4 American. The people in the hut said that he could take it for nothing, but Lieutenant Carroll said not to. He finally paid $2 for it. "Suppose it's poisoned or something?" I asked. "Then I'm gonna die," Pee-wee said. "You taking it back to the base?" "Nope." He borrowed a corkscrew from the woman he had bought the wine from and opened the wine and drank some of it. He made an awful face, then drank some more. "That bad?" "Yep. But that's one thing I got done." "What is?" "That's the first time I ever drank wine from a bottle with a cork in it," he said. "Now all I gotta do is make love with a foreign woman and smoke a cigar." We stayed around the village for the rest of the day, and then it was time to leave. The choppers came in and lifted us out, and we were back at the base before we knew it. "Those gooks will probably be having supper with the VC by the time we sit down to chow," Brunner said. "How come when you say gooks it sounds like nigger to me?" Johnson asked. "You hear what you want to hear," Brunner said. "What I'm hearing is what you saying," Johnson said. "Y'all shut that shit up." Sergeant Simpson looked from Brunner to Johnson and back again. We had roast beef, mashed potatoes, carrots, carrot cake, and milk for supper. I sat under a tree with Pee-wee, eating. A bug crawled over his leg and he put some mashed potatoes on his knee in the bug's path, but the bug turned and went the other way. "You think he's saying something about the chow?" I asked. "He probably wants some of the roast beef," Pee-wee said. "He know it's Sunday and everything, but he ain't getting none." "Sunday? It's not Sunday, it's Wednesday." "Bugs is 4 days behind people," he said matter-of-factly. Sergeant Simpson saw us and came over. He sat down and asked us how we were enjoying ourselves. "I've seen places I'd rather be," I said. "Times Square, Lenox Avenue, Fifth Avenue, you name it." "I loves it here," Pee-wee said. "I ain't never seen no place in the world better than this place right here. You know what I love the most?" "What's that?" Sergeant Simpson was amused by Pee-wee. "The bugs," Pee-wee said.
You go to sleep at night, they right there. You wake up in the morning, they right there. They better than a damn dog. So what you guys think about this outfit? Sergeant Simpson asked. It looks okay to me, Pee-wee said. I might have to straighten a few things out, though. Like what? Sergeant Simpson asked. Like Brunner, Pee-wee said. That boy got a quick lip on him. Uh-huh. Sergeant Simpson looked away. He might got him a quick lip, but Captain Stewart is the one eligible. Eligible for what? For Major, Sergeant Simpson said. And his best chance of making it is while he over here. His tour is up the 15th day of March. That's his problem, Pee-wee said. If he don't pick up his body count soon, Sergeant Simpson started to get up. It's going to be your problem. Chapter 5. The talk about us going to Hawaii was stronger than ever. Me and Pee-wee decided to save our money and have a blast in Hawaii. I also thought about taking some courses at the University of Hawaii. I got a letter from Mama at mail call. Pee-wee got a letter from his girlfriend, but I don't think he liked it. He crumpled it up and threw it in a butt can. Then he got it out again and reread it. Pee-wee, my mother says you shouldn't eat any native food over here, I said. She says it'll give you the runs because of the heat and everything. Where was she when I needed her? Pee-wee answered. He had spent the better part of 2 days on the crapper. How was that wine anyway? How I know? Pee-wee turned over on his bunk to face me. The only other wine I had in my damn life was some bird back home. How old you gotta be in Chicago to drink? Old enough to carry some money to the man? Pee-wee said. What else your mom's got to say? You wouldn't be interested, I said. How you know? Do you want to hear about how her feet swell up when she walks? My mama's feet used to swell like that, Pee-wee said. She went to 4 doctors and they couldn't do shit for her. Then she went to a mojo lady who gave her something to soak her feet in. That work? Yeah, she can walk all day now. My mother's a Baptist, I said. She wouldn't go to a mojo lady. My mama's a Baptist too, but she what you call a sore feet Baptist. Your feet get sore enough, those mojo ladies start looking pretty good. Wallowit came in pissed off because some motor pool guys were over from Chulai to play poker, and one of them was smoking pot. You know what this guy is? Wallowit was stripped down to his drawers and helmet. A damn white hippie. A what? A hippie, Wallowit said. Yeah, but you said he was a white hippie before, Pee-wee said. Well, he is white, Wallowit said. All hippies is white, Pee-wee said. No, they're not, I said. You gotta come to New York and you can see some black hippies. Everybody in New York is white, Pee-wee said. Perry is from New York and he sure ain't white. Yes, he is. He passing. You know, we had something like you back in Galesburg, Wallowit said. He spoke carefully as if he wasn't sure of the language. We cut it up and put it in formaldehyde. Didn't that leave your daddy lonesome? What's that got to do with my daddy? Nothing, Wallowit, I said. Pee-wee's just running off at the mouth. He's a crazy dude, Wallowit said. He got his towel and went out to our makeshift showers. The next day, we got a new film in. It was something about how Julie Andrews wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. We watched it once, and then we watched it again with the reels mixed up, just to be different. Johnson wanted to get the kids from the village up to the base, but a captain said we couldn't do that. So Johnson and a guy from Delta Company worked on a way to get a generator down to the village so we could show the movie to them.
For 2 days, we didn't do anything. Nothing. We didn't have any formations, patrols, nothing. Beautiful. A new supply of insect repellent came in. Lieutenant Carroll said that it was good for making Molotov cocktails. Pee-wee wanted to know how come he was thinking about making Molotov cocktails when we had all the explosives in the world right in camp. Good point. Lieutenant Carroll was a decent kind of guy. He talked a lot about Kansas, which is where he was from. His parents had a farm near Hays, and his father was proud of him being an officer in the Army. He told us that, about his father being proud of him being an officer, twice. It was like he didn't know what to make of it. For Sunday chow, we had roast beef, mashed potatoes, peas, carrots, carrot cake, and milk. We seemed to be having that quite a bit. After chow, we put the television on, but nothing was on. Nothing at all. All we got was static. Brew wrote a letter to President Johnson saying that if he wanted us to fight, he'd better send us some good televisions. And we all signed it. Then we threw it away. Then we watched the movie again without the sound, and we all had parts to play in it. That was the best showing of the movie, especially with Pee-wee as Julie Andrews. We listened to the news on radio and heard about peace talks in Paris. There was a lot of talk about how we were kicking the living crap out of the communists, too. "Turn that up loud as you can," Pee-wee said. "Make sure them Kongs hear it." We heard stories. Stories about fighting in Dak To and down south in Pleiku. But we weren't doing any of it. I thought about it, though. I wanted to know how it felt to shoot at a Kong. The way I thought about it mostly was thinking of what I would say when I got home. Maybe even what I would say to Kenny. Kenny always looked up to me. He couldn't play ball as well as I had when I was his age, and he didn't do as well in school. Maybe it had something to do with Dad leaving when Kenny was 4. He saw all the fights between Dad and Mom, and I think it hurt him more than it did me. I had basketball, and I was good in school. Later, with Mom drinking so much, all Kenny had was me. I wanted to tell him that I did something in the war. I couldn't sleep most of the night. When the rats weren't running around in the dark, the mosquitoes were after you. Pee-wee said that the mosquitoes ran patrols for the rats and afterward they split up their catch. I had to go to the bathroom, but I didn't want to go out to the outdoor latrine. In the first place, it stunk too bad. And in the second, as soon as you pulled your pants down after dark, the mosquitoes bit your ass. For breakfast, we had eggs, coffee, buns, bacon, and grits. Pee-wee complained that he missed the roast beef. "You getting that for lunch?" the cook said. "If you serve any more of that damn roast beef, you better bring a rifle with it because I'm going to put a hole in your ass for every slice of beef I see." Brunner said it like he meant it, too. The cook, a short blonde guy with a tattoo on his right arm that said Mother and one on his left arm that said Linda, spit in a cup and slid it down to Brunner. "There's your lunch, skinhead." Captain Stewart, our company commander, came over and asked what was wrong, and Brunner told him what had happened. "We can only fix what they send us, Captain," the cook said. "I'm sure the corporal realizes that, soldier," the captain said. "But men who go out and risk their lives every day would like a little more respect." "I didn't ask to be no damn cook." "Watch your mouth, soldier." The captain's voice assumed captain's status. 2 jets swept by and started hitting a target less than 5 miles away. They must have made a half-dozen passes before they were joined by 2 more. We went outside and watched them, our food still in our hands. "They must have got a convoy," Brunner said. He said it to Captain Stewart, and he had his sucking-up voice on. Behind him, the cook was spitting in Brunner's coffee and stirring it up. Lobel smiled when he saw it, and turned away. "The VC are trying to get in position for the truce," Captain Stewart said.
They'll try to get into as good a position as they can and then negotiate to hold those positions.
If the war is going to be over, they can have the whole damn country, Pee-wee said. I don't want the sucker.
That's not why guys are out there humping, soldier. The captain pulled out a pad and pen. What's your name?
Gates, sir, Pee-wee said.
That's G-A-T. I can spell, Private. Are you a cook, too? Just then, a guy came from HQ-10 and called Stewart. 2 more minutes and everybody was running around except Lieutenant Carroll. I think they want all the officers in the HQ tent, I said. They want me. They know where to reach me, Carroll said. Or they can just leave a message with my secretary. There was a sadness about Lieutenant Carroll. Something that you didn't notice at first, but it was there just the same. Even when he made jokes, it was there. I watched him walk toward his hooch. The choppers. They made a noise like the heartbeat of a machine gun as they came in. My stomach knotted for a second and I told myself to relax. I had a feeling, a sense that something important was going to happen.
Alpha Company, let's go,
Sergeant Simpson started yelling. Alpha Company started lining up. Sergeant Simpson started checking out our squad, making sure we had the right gear.
What's up?
Lieutenant Carroll had to raise his voice to get over the noise of the choppers.
Charlie Company is pinned down over there, Simpson said. They were going to send some Marines in to get them out, but they sent the Marines up to Khe Sanh. They expect some heavy stuff up there. They got reports of battalion-sized movements. A battalion of VC?
Carroll looked at Simpson.
That's what they said,
Simpson said. Lieutenant Carroll went off toward HQ tent.
Okay, you guys, this is what's happening. The Air Force is going to try to clear the LZ, and then we'll secure it. 3rd Platoon's responsibility is just to protect the left flank of the LZ. We move in and push out 100 meters. 1st Platoon will clear the area of hostiles along with 2nd Platoon. 4th Platoon gets the right flank. We shouldn't have any problems unless the VC want to stand and fight a whole damn company. You hear anybody going out last night?
Pee-wee asked me.
Then Charlie Company must have been out there all night, he said.
I hadn't heard of any company going out at night before. Lieutenant Carroll came running back with another lieutenant. He spoke a few words to Sergeant Simpson, and Simpson nodded.
Okay, you guys, make sure your pieces are on safety. Do that right now.
I ran my finger over the safety catch of my M16. It was on.
I don't want no rounds in the chamber until after we hit the area, Simpson said. We hit the ground, me and Lieutenant Carroll will mark off the squad assignments. And don't go shooting at nothing until you see something to shoot at. Let's go!
My legs felt heavy as I ran toward the chopper. Lieutenant Carroll was at the door, checking us in. I banged the shit out of my knee getting in. My bad knee, too. I looked at Pee-wee. There was a smear of blood across his face. Simpson noticed it, too.
What the hell happened to you? This dumb fucker hit me with his rifle.
Pee-wee jerked a thumb at Brunner.
Simple-ass farm boy. Shut your mouth!
Brunner came back. I had to grab Monaco to keep from falling toward the door as the chopper jerked into the air.
When we hit the zone, keep your distances. Don't bunch up, Lieutenant Carroll called out. We shouldn't get any resistance, especially at first. When we dig in, make sure you're dug in behind something solid. How about my daddy's pickup truck? Wolowick asked. I wouldn't mind going home and getting behind that baby.
I couldn't see a thing outside the chopper. The door gunner was reading a comic book. He looked cool. I thought of saying a prayer, but I couldn't think of one. I didn't know one prayer. Under my breath, I apologized to God.
Yo, Pee-wee.
What?
We get back to the base, remind me to memorize a prayer. I know one, Pee-wee said. What is it? Flying into combat, about to have a fit. Lord, if you listening, please get me out of this shit. Just say a Hail Mary, Monaco yelled. From where we were at the base, the action looked like it was just a few miles away. We were in the choppers nearly 10 minutes and still going. I didn't know we were even getting near until the door gunner put his hand on his headset, as if he were listening to something, then moved to his gun, pointed it down at the lush green jungle below us, and started firing. The .50 caliber started spitting and the shells came out at an enormous rate. They were flying back into the chopper and banging around. I dropped my rifle. Monaco pushed it back toward me with his foot. We didn't just come down. We damn near fell down. I was grabbing for the sides and shaking. I thought the chopper had been hit. Get ready, Sergeant Simpson called out. Monaco, you go first. Don't none of y'all shoot Monaco. Monaco had his eyes closed, praying. Now, the machine gunner yelled over his shoulder. Monaco went out in a flash, and Lieutenant Carroll was right behind him. Johnson jumped out next and fell. I was next in the door, looked down, and saw that we were still about 10 feet off the ground. Jump, shithead! I jumped and landed across Johnson's legs. I got up first and started to help him up, just as 2 more bodies landed on top of us. We started crawling away from under the chopper. Let's hit it! Spread out! We spread out and started moving toward the trees. I kept as low as I could, bent over at the waist. We kept moving ahead with Monaco running like he was crazy or something. There was no fire, and we stopped in a pretty dense area. Stay down! Stay alert! We didn't move for a while. I looked up and saw the choppers in the distance. Then they were gone. Even the sound was gone. The only thing I could hear was the heavy sound of my own breathing. We were on our own. Simpson started going around, placing the squad. Johnson was off to one side with the .60 caliber machine gun. Brew was his feeder. I gave Johnson the thumbs-up sign, and he gave it back. The air in Nam was always hard to breathe. It was heavy, thicker than the air back home. Now it was harder. I opened my mouth wide and sucked in as much air as I could, but it didn't seem to be enough. We waited 10 minutes. Nothing. Then we began to hear small arms firing off to our right. I looked, but I couldn't see anything. You could smell it, though. You could smell the stink of gunpowder and hear the distant burping of the machine guns. We waited 20 minutes. Nothing. The sound of gunfire subsided. The smoke didn't. It drifted our way like a gentle mist through the tall trees. Behind us, the choppers were coming in again. They went back into the landing zone. Then they were gone again. We waited. 40 minutes. Brunner, back up! We started out, moving less quickly than when we came in. The landing zone, without the excitement, the fear, was a longer distance away. We reached it finally, and I was near enough to Carroll to hear him call the choppers in. We were on the choppers and out in minutes, with Simpson screaming at us to get our weapons on safety. We got to the base area, and I remembered Jenkins. I was behind Brunner and followed the path he walked. We got back to the hooch, and Simpson came in. How did Charlie Company do? Wallowik asked. They lost 9 people, Sergeant Simpson said. 1 platoon lost 1 man, got 6 wounded. How many VCs were out there? They don't know, but what they do know is that they didn't have on no damn pajamas. They was North Vietnamese regulars. They still talking about us going to Hawaii? Wallowik asked. Yeah, they talking about bringing some LRP teams up here too, Sergeant Simpson said. That the stuff I don't like. When he left, I asked Wallowik what a LERP team was. "It's a long-range surveillance team," Wallowik said. "They don't fight if they can't help it. They just go out and see what's out there." "Why does Sergeant Simpson think that's so bad?" "I don't know," Wallowik said. "But he didn't live to be a short-timer by being stupid." Lieutenant Carroll came and asked me about my profile. He said that he saw that I had mentioned it when I first got into the company. I told him how I had hurt the knee playing ball. "It bother you too much to go on patrols?" "Not so far," I said. "I just don't want to get messed up because of the knee." He looked at me for a long time without saying anything. Then he looked away for a moment and back at me. "Perry, I don't want to take you into combat if the knee's really bad," he said. "It's not just you, I mean. Everybody in the squad depends on everybody else." "I guess it's not really that bad," I said. "Look, I don't want to avoid the issue," he said. "If you tell me you can't go on patrol, I'll see if I can get you transferred to another outfit. If you tell me that you can go on patrol, then we'll just wait until the profile comes down and take a look." "I'll wait for it," I said. "I don't like putting you on the spot," he said. "I really don't. But we're all in this mess together." "Sure." When he left, Pee-wee asked me what the conversation was about, and I told him. "Don't go being no fucking hero," Pee-wee said. "What would you have said?" I asked him. "Probably the same thing you did, but I would have been pissed off at myself," he said. "I'm a little pissed," I said. I really wasn't pissed, because I knew the real question wasn't about my knee. I thought the knee would be okay. The real question was what I was doing, what any of us were doing in Nam. Chapter 6. I got guard duty with Lobel. Sergeant Walcott from Bravo Company was sergeant of the guard, and he gave us a pep talk. We were on from 8 to midnight. There were sandbags around the shallow foxhole we had to sit in. At Fort Devens, a 4-foot deep hole was plenty. Now it didn't seem so great. It was about 7 feet wide. I had my M16 and Lobel had his and an M79 grenade launcher. There were sandbags piled in front of the foxhole, with a place to shoot through. The perimeter of the camp was marked by intricate patterns of barbed wire barriers. The wire itself had razor-sharp protrusions as well as trip flares planted throughout. Lobel and I had to watch about 60 meters of the wire to make sure that no VC broke through. "Perry, you okay?" "Yeah." "You look a little uptight." "I feel a little uptight." "What's the matter?" "Still thinking about Jenkins, I guess," I answered. "Who's Jenkins?" "The guy I came in with. You remember he stepped on a mine?" "Yeah." "Nothing can get through that much wire," I said. "Nothing can get through it without getting messed up," Lobel answered. "But they try." I didn't answer. For all the talk, the war was still far away. All you had to do was to be careful, and you'd be okay. Jenkins hadn't been careful. "You know, Perry, if I was going to make a movie over here, I'd make it a love story," Lobel said dreamily. "How come you always talk about movies?" "Because they're the only real thing in life," Lobel said. He slumped down in the foxhole. "You didn't think any of this was real, did you?" Look, Lobel, why don't you get up and watch The Wire with me? You scared? Yeah, man. Oh, okay. He got up, just like that. There were things chirping out beyond where I could see. I remembered going to the old cowboy movies and seeing the cowboys sitting around a campfire and the Indians sneaking up on them and making noises like owls and stuff. I looked over toward Lobel, who was looking out toward the wire. Hey, Lobel. I didn't mean anything, I said. I guess I'm just a little nervous. No sweat. He wore his helmet down low over his eyes, and the top part of his face was in shadow. I'm a little nervous, too. I'd be real nervous, except I know none of this is real and I'm just playing a part. What part are you playing? The part where the star of the movie is sitting in the foxhole explaining how he feels about life and stuff like that. You never get killed in movies when you're doing that. Anytime you get killed in a movie, it's after you set it up. You play a part when we were on patrol? That wasn't a patrol, Lobel said. That was a firefight. I thought a firefight was when you shot at something. Anytime anybody is getting shot at, it's a firefight, Lobel said. Anyway, I was playing Lee Marvin as a tough sergeant. That's my best part. It got quiet again. Then I heard somebody's radio. It sounded a little like Wilson Pickett. What do you think the VCR like? I asked. I mean, really like. Who knows? There were 2 radios on. In the distance, I heard what sounded like a chopper but could have been a generator. The shadows were deepening. I didn't want to say anything else to Lobel. There were lights on towers behind us that played on the wire. I saw something furry scurrying just outside the wire. The damn thing scared the crap out of me. I could see that it was a small animal. I knew it was a small animal. And yet it still scared me, being out there in a place I was supposed to be watching. A bug crawled on the back of my hand. I decided not to move. I had to get used to the bugs, I told myself. I felt him crawl over the back of my hand and start up my wrist. I slapped him away. What's your favorite movie of all time? Lobel asked. I don't know, I said. Shane, maybe. You ever see foreign movies? I saw a Japanese movie I really liked once. I don't remember the name of it. What was it about? This guy was a farmer. He and his wife used to carry water up a hill all day. The Island, that's the name of it, Lobel said. The kid gets sick and he has to get a doctor. Then the kid dies. Right, The Island. Good flick. Lobel put down the grenade launcher and sat down in the foxhole again. If you like that flick and you like Shane, you probably qualify to be a real movie freak like me. You see a lot of movies? I didn't turn toward him, hoping that he would stand up again. My uncle's a director, he answered. I've dated more starlets than you can imagine. You got drafted? Enlisted. How come? Long story, he said. Oh. I looked at my watch. I still had 3 hours to go. I had time for a long story. I hoped that Lobel didn't fall asleep. I swept my eyes over the gate the way they had showed us to on night maneuvers back at Devon's. I thought about Mama. I worried about her. She had hoped that when I finished high school, I would get a job and help her keep the house together. When I told her I was going into the Army, she cried. I might as well get it over with, I had said, sitting in the tiny kitchen. Over the stove, the old electric clock was 5 minutes early. Kenny always set it early in the mornings, knowing that by evening it would be late. You don't have to go, Mama had said. She didn't say it as if she meant it. She said it like a little girl hoping that I wouldn't leave. There was liquor on her breath. I had bent over and kissed her cheek, and she had put her arm around me. I wouldn't have joined if I had seen anything else to do. When I figured I couldn't afford college, I just didn't want to be in Harlem anymore. There was an old woman who used to sell the Daily News outside of Sydenham Hospital. She was the first person I told about going into the Army.
Why you want to go off to war?
She asked. She was short and dark with eyebrows turned white with age, although her hair was only lightly streaked with gray. Her voice was high and wavered uncertainly as she spoke. Gotta get away from here, I said. See something new.
What you want to get away from here for? She asked. You got your peoples here. They ain't got this many black folks no place else in the world except maybe Africa and Haiti. You ain't going there, is you?
No, ma'am.
Then stay on around here,
she said, a smile lighting her face.
You ain't doing no better than us, child.
Perry, what the hell you thinking about? Lobel looked up at me. An old black woman in Harlem. No market, Lobel said. What? No market for old black women, Lobel went on. If we're going to make a fortune on the silver screen, we gotta figure what's going to sell. What we need is young girls. You got a girlfriend? No. How come? Didn't think that much about them, I said. Between playing ball and school, I filled my time up pretty good. I wish I had one to write to now, though. You worried about it? Worried? I looked at him. He was looking out toward the wire again. No, I'm not worried. Just wish I had somebody else to write to, that's all. You want to write to a starlet? Lobel asked. I know one who can just about read. She might know how to write. I mean a real girlfriend, I said. There you go again, he sighed, stood up, and picked up the grenade launcher. You're really hooked on reality. It's a bad scene, Perry. You got a girlfriend? Nope, and I'm worried about it, too. How come? Because I'll be 20 on the 3rd of May and I'm still a virgin. Big deal. What do you mean, big deal? I could be playing the part of the baby-faced virgin who gets killed and all you see is a pan shot of him near the end of the flick. You think I want that? I thought you were playing Lee Marvin, I said. Don't you know what role you're playing? No, not for sure. You know what role you're playing? I don't know, I shrugged. What roles you got? The role you gotta stay away from is the role of the good black guy who everybody thinks is a coward and then gets killed saving everybody else. That's a bummer. You can't be the romantic lead. Why not? You don't have a girlfriend, you just said so. I met a nurse on the plane coming over here. White or black? White. No good. Then it becomes one of those noble flicks about interracial love and they kill you off at the end so they can show it in Georgia. Shit. That's why I keep saying we should make this whole war into a musical. A big Busby Berkeley number. Thousands of little VCs running up and down stairs in their little black PJs. We won't even have to pay them scale. Captain Stewart came around with a television crew and we were all filmed. First they got us cleaning our weapons. Then they asked each one of us why we were fighting in Nam. This is what everybody said. Lieutenant Carroll said that we had to demonstrate that America stood for something, and that's what we were doing. Sergeant Simpson said that we were trying to free the South Vietnamese people to do what they wanted to do. Brunner said he was fighting because he hated communism. Wallowik said that he was fighting because his country asked him to. I like that. Lobo said something about the domino theory, how if Vietnam fell to the communists, then the rest of Asia might fall. Bruce said the same thing about the domino theory. I think he was just repeating what he had heard Lobo say. I said that we either defended our country abroad, or we would be forced to fight in the streets of America, which everybody seemed to like. Then the news team got to Pee Wee and asked him why he was fighting in Vietnam. Vietnam? Pee Wee looked around like he was shocked or something. I must have got off on the wrong stop. I thought this was St. Louis. The news guys just walked away from him. And then they started talking to Brunner, who talked a good 5 minutes. Captain Stewart watched Brunner, and I could see he liked what Brunner was saying. He left for a few minutes and then came back and told Lieutenant Carroll that we had to go on patrol. Captain Stewart said that the television guys were coming with us. Lieutenant Carroll looked over at Simpson, and Simpson looked away. We got into the Hueys, big, mean-looking choppers, at 1200 hours and headed north. Part of the squad was in the first chopper and the rest in the second. The news guys were filming everything. We landed in a sandy area about 2 kilometers from the sea. Simpson put Monaco on point again, but this time he told Johnson to be the trailer. Johnson looked at me, and I could see he wasn't happy to be the last man on the line. The news team was in the middle. We walked along a trail for about 20 minutes with the television guys photographing us, and then headed back toward the Hueys. We were inside of the landing zone when Monaco opened up. "Hold your fire! Hold your fire!" Sergeant Simpson had ducked behind a tree. Carroll moved toward Monaco, who was still firing, and yelled something to him. Monaco stopped firing and yelled back. Carroll put his back to a tree, pointed to his eyes, and held up one finger. "What's that mean?" Pee Wee asked. "He means he saw one VC," Brunner said. We stayed low for a while. Then the cameramen started getting up and easing forward. There was another burst from Monaco, and then I heard Lobo yelling, "There he is! There he is!" I didn't see anything. I looked, but I didn't see anything. Monaco was firing on a stand of trees, and soon the whole squad had opened up. Simpson was crawling back, and I saw him grab Johnson and turn him around. He wanted Johnson to watch our rear. I looked to see what they were shooting at, but I still didn't see anything. I decided to shoot anyway. I looked closely at where the others were shooting, then thought I saw something move. I lifted the .16 and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" This from Simpson. Simpson, Monaco, and Wallowik moved out. Lieutenant Carroll was telling everybody to hold their fire. They found the guy. Wallowik dragged him out of the trees. The newsman went to take his picture while Simpson was posting us around the LZ. My hands were sweating. I looked at my rifle, wondering why it hadn't fired. "You okay, Perry?" Lieutenant Carroll came over to me. "Yes, sir." "Soon as you fire off a clip, put a new one in," he said. "We got better supplies than the VC. We have to use them." "Got that?" "Yes, sir." I looked at the rifle after he had left. Then I shoved in a clip. I had forgotten to load the damn thing. The newsmen were on the chopper first, then the rest of the squad. Brunner threw on the VC before he got on. I didn't want to look at the VC. I knew by the way that Brunner had thrown him on that he was dead. The news guys were getting still photos of the dead VC. Brunner took out a cigar and lit up. We got back to the base, and they took off the VC first. They must have called ahead because there was a Jeep waiting to take the VC back. Carroll went with the news team in another Jeep. The rest of us walked from the chopper pad to the huts. We got back, and they had laid the body out on the ground. The arms were out and the legs were crossed at the ankles. I walked by him. He wasn't any bigger than Kenny. We went directly to the mess hall. They had saved lunch for us. The news guys were buzzing around, checking their gear and everything. They must have taken 100 pictures each of the dead VC. They even put a weapon down by his body and took a picture of him with that. Simpson came over to the news guys and made sure that we all had our weapons on safe. We had baked chicken, carrots, mashed potatoes, and giblet gravy, and rolls for lunch, and strawberry ice cream. I sat with Pee-wee and asked him what he thought. "I done seen 2 VC over here so far," he said. "One captured sucker and one dead sucker." "I didn't even see where he was hit," I said. "Fool had about 20 holes in his ass," Pee-wee said. "I don't know what you was looking at." Neither did I. I couldn't tell if there was too much to see, or if my eyes were getting bad. Maybe I just didn't want to see some of the things I was seeing. Lieutenant Carroll came over and said that we had done a good job. It wasn't real. We were eating baked chicken, and all I could think of was that it was pretty good. We had gone out to the jungle and seen one VC and killed him. Then we came back in time for lunch. Maybe Lobo was right. Maybe it was just some kind of movie. Sergeant Simpson came to our hut and brought some magazines. I asked him if they had found a rifle or anything near the body. "Perry wants to make sure the dude was a VC," Brunner said. He still had his cigar in his mouth. "He wasn't no VC," Simpson said. "He was a North Vietnamese regular from one of their big units, the 324th. They found his papers on him." "What's that mean?" I asked. "How I know?" Simpson said. "All I know is my time is getting short. I want to go take me a short nap because I ain't got time for a long one." Monaco wanted the squad to practice volleyball. He had bet $25 on our squad versus the Blazers, a team from Charlie Company. "We can't beat them," Bruce said. "They beat us 6 times already." "You know that tall guy with the big hands?" Monaco was flossing his teeth. "Yeah." Brew was putting salve on his feet. "He's the one that spikes all the time." "Well, he got hit the day before yesterday," Monaco said. "He ain't playing." Chapter 7. Jamal, the medic, came by with malaria pills. I took one and he sat on the edge of the bunk. "I see you people got 3 VC today," he said. 3? "That's what the report says," Jamal said. "We got 1 VC. All I know is what I see on the reports," Jamal said. "They put 3 down on their reports. I send 3 into regiment." "I don't believe they put down 3 when everybody saw that we only got 1. "You'll get used to what goes on over here," he said. He had a sing-song way of talking, like a child in a man's body. "Did Captain Stewart see the report?" "Who do you think gave me the report?" He left some malaria pills on Pee-wee's bunk and split. "Thanks," I called after him as he left the hooch. One of the correspondents had left the New York Times behind, and I went through it. Mostly it was the same old garbage. The Knicks had drafted some guy from Southern Illinois I never heard of, and they were still losing a lot of games. There wasn't much about the war. A lot of VC were killed north of Saigon, and President Johnson was saying that the United States was ready to come to the peace table if the communists were. It wasn't even Thanksgiving yet, and the weather was already cold in New York. I imagined the brothers hustling down Lenox Avenue trying to get away from the wind. Howard, a guy I used to play ball with, crossed my mind. He was somebody I could write to. He'd probably write back. 3 years before, he had pulled a robbery in Midtown and been sent up to prison in Stormville, New York. I had written to him the whole time he was up there. He used to tell me how much he appreciated the letters. Maybe he would answer my letters from Nam. Mail call was hard when you didn't get any mail. I thought that what I needed was to have something more in the world than I had. I remembered what Lobo had said about the starlet, but it was silly. I needed something real. It didn't even have to be something that was going on at the time. A plan for when I got back would have been fine. I couldn't think of anything and felt depressed. An image of the VC we had killed flashed through my mind. I wondered if he had a family. Had he been out on patrol? When did he know he was going to die? What was worse than thinking about him dead was the way we looked at him. At least we had cared for Jenkins, had trembled when he died. He was one of us, an American, a human. But the dead Vietnamese soldier, his body sprawled out in the mud, was no longer a human being. He was a thing, a trophy. I wondered if I could become a trophy. We won! Wallowit came in after the volleyball game and sat on the edge of the bunk. They're paying us off in beer. Way to go, I said. You okay? Yeah. Seeing that dead gook mess you up some? A little, I said. Maybe even more than Jenkins. Who's Jenkins? He was the guy. I couldn't believe that Wallowit didn't know who I was talking about. He had been on the patrol when Jenkins was killed. I looked into his face and I saw that he was for real. Jenkins was the guy I came in with. He stepped on a mine. Oh yeah, sorry about him, Wallowit said. You play chess? A little. You got a set? Wallowit went to get his chess set, and Jamal came back in. He had a clipboard and he put it in front of me. He pointed to a figure. It read 3. I looked at the column it was in and it was listed confirmed kills. I looked up at Jamal, but he was already on his way out. You know, that guy is a little... Wallowit held his hand out palm down and turned it from side to side. It takes all kinds, I said. Wallowit had put the chessboard on a box and we started setting up the pieces. How many VC were killed today? I asked. 1, I guess, Wallowit said. The report said 3, I said. You shoot a VC and they take the bodies and run off with them, Wallowit said. That's so you never know how many are killed. You can't even find shells when they shoot at you. They take those too. Then how do you know how many were killed? Long as it's them and not us, he said. Take the white pieces. As soon as I crossed Manhattan Avenue, I knew something was up. The street was quiet except for a radio that blared from behind a window with its shade pulled down. I stopped on the corner and looked down the street. A small girl, too young to be out past 11, came out of a hallway and peered around a mail collection box. The Rovers down there, she said. Who? The Rovers, she repeated. They're from Brooklyn. They looking for somebody. I wasn't about to go down the street. I had heard too many stories about gangs looking for someone who they had to deal with. A lot of them were getting out of the gang thing and into a black pride thing, but the gangs were still there. A car, I hadn't noticed it before, had eased onto the block. Suddenly it picked up speed, wheels squealing, lurching from one side of the narrow street to the other. The rovers came out and threw rocks and bottles. Then I heard the shots and flattened myself against the wall. The rovers started running from down the block. A minute later, the street was empty again. Then came the police sirens. "Here's one!" It startled me at first. Then I went over to where the woman was pointing. I saw the kid's frightened face, the eyes wide as the neon lights from Joe Walker's restaurant turned it alternately green and red. He had been shot. The police cleared the corner. It was safe to walk up to Morningside and home. The next day in the West Indian store, I heard 2 teenagers saying that the kid had died. Brew came in and put his radio on. He had cupcakes and tossed me one and Wallowik one. The radio was playing something about going to San Francisco with flowers in your hair. A nice tune. We played 2 games of chess and I won both of them easily. Wallowik didn't seem to mind. His idea was just to capture as many pieces as possible. If it led him to a bad situation, he would just lose. I was glad the game wasn't hard. I didn't want anything hard to do. When I tried to sleep, I kept seeing the VC, just the way he was laid out in front of the company. I pushed my mind away, forced myself to think about other things. I started thinking about Kenny. There was a kid in his class who used to bother him a lot. The kid used to call him a punk and push him around. Kenny wasn't a punk, but he wasn't a fighter either. Sometimes we used to imagine traveling around the world together. We'd have imaginary trips around the world. I would imagine just the 2 of us, but Kenny would always include Mama. That was the difference between me and Kenny. He could get other people, mostly Mama, into his dreams easier than I could. He was the bridge between me and Mama, and I liked him for that.